強く強く輝いて消えた流れ星ほら命が燃える何かに怯え走り続けたその虚しさのしじなに何を見て何を探してきた自分
How's it going, everyone, and welcome to another episode of No Excuses on YouTube.com with your favorite show host, Aristil.
A complete lack of enthusiasm.
And Willis Hill, and we're here to bring you the latest news and commentary on the video games industry for the week that was. Although, honestly, I haven't seen anything I would classify as big news this week, that's for sure.
The biggest news is that Blizzard made Clash Royale.
Yeah. I'm sure lots of people care. Anyway, if you'd like to get involved with the show, you can do so by sending us email at noexcusesvtw@gmail.com, or you can follow us on the Twitter at noexcusesvtw, or you can join us in our Discord server, which you can get to by clicking on the link that will be provided in the description posted underneath the show archive on YouTube.
Yes, do it. So, we'll dive straight in on the stream today. I'm playing a bit of Final Fantasy again. I'm going to go and I'm going to attempt to solo Binding Coil of Bahamut. I know it's probably doable, but I've never even looked at what I'm supposed to be doing in there. So this could either be, a breeze where I go through and get some cool looking gear, or an absolute disaster.
Bintania can kill you, Bahamut can kill you, and Naildeus Danis can kill you, and nothing else can.
Right. Well, that's good to know, at least.
Well, one of the bosses can become invulnerable, and you'll be there for literally ever if you screw it up, but it still can't kill you.
So it's a matter of just who gets bored and falls over first.
At that point, just reset the boss somehow.
Yeah.
Jump off the edge of the arena or whatever.
But,
Right.
I soloed it back in Shadowbringers, so you should be fine.
Yeah. I think it's been soloable for a while. But if I go in there, I can get some really cool gear for my Dark Knight build.
It's worth noting that the armor in there is as good as the Tombstone gear, and the weapons are better than the Tombstone weapons.
Yeah. And in a lot of cases, I think they look better too.
But that's only for the last tier.
Yes. So yeah, first time going into Binding Coil, this is going to be interesting.
Have you not even done it for the story?
No, I don't think I have. I've
You
just
really
unlocked
should.
it and never really done it.
There's a lot of stuff that doesn't actually make a lot of sense unless you've done it.
Yeah, it clarified quite a few things about Louis Swa when I finally went back and did it.
Yeah. The fact that he found
Well,
to punch the
it
moon.
clarifies a lot of things about mechanics generally as well, and especially pertinent given the sort of new angles that we're seeing from Elgaia.
Yeah. Oh, hey, it's old school Alphino. That's an old look. You've gone through, what,
I remember-
4 different looks now?
And somehow, he still looks just like his sister. And if it wasn't for their different colored outfits, you could not tell which one's the girl.
Yeah.
From what the story tells us, though, that's largely his mother's fault.
Yeah.
Because she thought it's cuter that way.
I like that introduction, actually, to the family. Like, the stern as it'll get out father, which explains Alphino, and then the mother, who is just an all-round a nice person, but a little bit flighty.
But the thing is, you can tell the streamers, like the big streamers who are fathers, all hate their father. Like because basically they see him as being a shit dad.
I mean, yes, he is. But he has good reason for doing what he's doing.
I'm sure he thinks that, but you only get one dad.
Yeah, that's right. So he's still a crap dad.
When you got kids, you can justify it however you want. They're the most important thing in your life at that point.
Mm-hmm. So, let us dive in while I fight this ball. Oh, it's dead. Okay. For the week, I didn't do a whole lot of gaming because unfortunately that free time I had just went poof.
Eve?
Poof. Yes.
What, you lost the new driver?
We sacked him.
Good grief, he was that bad.
Yeah. Yeah. There's just making mistakes, and then there's like you look at something and go, how? How did you do this?
What was it? Is this like a please don't eat the flowers situation?
I wish it was that good. So yeah.
Like,
Without going
it's a,
like he was doing things like somehow managing to double charge customers and things like that.
oh, yeah. No. Throw that guy to the curb.
Yeah. Things like he'd take bookings and then just ignore them.
Yeah. I don't know. Like he was Kenyan, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what it was like in what it's like in Kenya, but from what I've heard of people who've spent time in some of the other African states, like Tanzania specifically, the overwhelming culture there is that work is something not to be taken seriously.
Mm.
Like you work if you feel like it, and if you don't feel like it, then you don't.
Yeah, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back, is he just opted just not turn up to shifts he didn't want to do. And this guy's a freaking minister as well.
It's like deeply baked into their culture.
Yeah.
Like they just because they don't have the sort of the very structured culture that you have elsewhere in the world. There's just no there's no concept of work ethic. And I don't mean that to say, oh well, they have a bad work ethic. I mean they don't have a concept of work ethic to begin with. The idea that there's ethical bearing on whether or not you fulfill your work obligations just doesn't exist.
Yeah, just a big culture clash. But a lot of that stuff we could work past, but without going into too much detail, yeah.
That's sort of like the far opposite end of how like European work culture versus, and I mean specifically European. I don't mean British, and I don't mean American. I mean European work culture is sort of like the midpoint, and you've got African work culture on one side, and you've got Japanese work culture far on the other side of it.
Yeah, neither of which is good.
Yeah, so Japanese work culture is the work culture where you are expected to work yourself to death until you decide to go and commit suicide in one of the national parks. And African work culture is where you work when it suits you and only when it suits you. And Europeans sort of in the middle, where they take a pretty laissez-faire approach to it because they've got such excessively strong worker protections. But generally speaking, the idea is that you're supposed to work for your meal. Other places like America and Britain and they're a little bit more on the obligation side.
Yeah.
Also depends on where you are in America, because the work ethic in California is radically different from rural Georgia.
Oh, going by some of these offices and the high-tech industries, it's like what they consider work is...
California is bordering on a slave state. I'm not quite sure why everybody wants to be there.
You go there, you pay way too much for your house, you pay way too much for your food, and you get worked to the bone. Enjoy. Don't go to California, please. Anywho.
Personally, if you are in California, please stay there.
To be fair, Auckland is more expensive to live in than California.
Auckland is like one of, I think, the third most expensive city in the world to live in.
I think we're currently the fourth.
Yeah. Because Sydney's right up there, so is Melbourne. Singapore, I'm not sure, can't remember who actually took the top, possibly Delhi.
Yeah, well, no, not Delhi, I'd say Dubai.
Oh, sorry, yeah, Dubai, not Delhi.
Dubai seems more likely, basically because they've got an awful lot of loans to pay off.
Oh, yeah. And yeah, I've seen documentaries basically saying that Dubai's long-term sustainability is not great.
It's deeply negative.
That'll make the spam calls I get all week from clear fraud people in India better or worse if Dubai goes under.
Dubai's not in India. What are you talking about?
I'm losing my mind. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. You're getting Dubai mixed up with Delhi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You didn't you just get contacted from the UAE?
Yes, I did. That's probably why I got it on the brain.
I'm sorry, what?
The UAE is where Dubai is, not where Delhi is.
Oh, look, a snake.
Yeah. So anyway,
So,
don't worry
geography.
about it.
There's
I'm having a moment.
There's an international meme, and this is a meme that exists everywhere outside America, is that Americans just don't geography. Period.
I am generally better at geography than most Americans, but I still
That's
have
not-
moments.
That's not a high bar to
Yeah.
pass.
I still have my America moments when it comes to geography.
So do the Ukraine test on any American, and the result will be enlightening. The stronger their feelings about the crisis in Ukraine, the less likely it is that they'll be able to find it on a map.
So I'm guessing what the higher tier points at Uganda and the rest of them point at Chile.
To be fair, none of them know where Afghanistan is either, but that's what they'll usually point at if you ask them where Ukraine is.
That's worrying. Anywho, let's get off that topic, shall we? As for stuff I did this week, because my time is... Oh, was that it? Okay, apparently I've done first turn. Yeah, so... Nerd stuff this week, I went and 100%ed the new Kirby game. Yeah, you beat the final boss, you go into new game, you beat every boss again on hard mode, then you beat the final boss again, and then an arena opens up. You beat all the bosses again, and then you finally fight the, for real this time, guys, totally, the final boss.
Well,
So-
this is what post game is usually like in most games.
Yeah. So, to be fair, a lot of the times when you do fight these, all the bosses again, they do have new mechanics, or they're a lot tougher. So, yeah, the game gets hard in the post game. And the very final boss is an absolute marathon fight, and you're coming into that at the end of a marathon where you've just beat every other boss in the game in sequence. Also, hard mode Meta Knight, who is a cheating jerk. So, yeah, 100% of that game. It was good fun. It was cute, sweet. Don't think about it too hard.
I mean, so, well then, where does it rate sort of relative to the other first party offerings?
It's up there, I think. Like, it's not on the same level of, say, Breath of the Wild, or...
It's not system seller.
It's not a system seller, no. But if you're looking for something just light, fluffy, fun, with underlying deep cosmic horror elements under it, you could do worse.
Yeah, I guess for me, Kirby is one of those things that if you didn't get into it when you're young, you're probably just not going to get into it. Like, because I just feel, no matter how good a Kirby game is, I just feel no draw to it whatsoever.
Yeah. Like, I got into it with the very first Kirby game, where they didn't even know what color Kirby was yet.
Yeah, I didn't start with Kirby until the N64. Really, I had the SNES games, but I didn't really play them.
Yep. I had it on the Game Boy, and Sakurai wanted to make him yellow.
The only thing I've ever played with Kirby in it is Smash. Like, I
Yeah.
just don't have any affinity for Kirby whatsoever.
Yeah. Like, the
I
first...
might have if Kirby had been in Mario Kart, but he wasn't in Mario Kart.
Link is now. As is
Yeah.
everybody's favorite serial killer. Yeah.
I'm struggling to think who that is because
That's the villager.
there's a dark past to a lot of these characters.
I mean, you've got things like Heihachi's... Was it Heihachi? No, Heihachi's son. Who is the son of everybody's favourite serial killer. But no, I was talking about the villager in this case. So, yeah. But, yeah, like, the early Kirby games were all just light, fluffy. It's like a quick platformer. The first game, Kirby didn't even have the copy ability. He just ate things, and that was it. And DDD was the big bad. But as time's gone on, like, they've all developed this deep, eldritch horror thing going on in the background. And this latest game's no exception, where you have this unknowable alien entities come down and apparently either ascended or eaten all the humans, which has led to this dead world. But, yeah. You end up fighting this giant space moth thing, and then you pull a ball out of its back, and then you fight that. So, I don't know. There might be lore in there. I don't know.
It must be some pretty deep lore.
But yeah. Okay.
It'd be a reference to the secret boss of the N64 game. That's what it kind of sounds like, but without having played it and looked at it, I can't tell you.
Yeah. So it's a good time. Just don't think about it too hard. As for other nerdery stuff this week, I watched a little bit of anime. I got some time to sit down and go through. I'm up to date on your boy Kong Ming.
And how is it? I haven't watched it yet.
I'm enjoying it. It shouldn't work. It should not work at all, but it does. So the whole premise is Zhuge Liang is on his deathbed and dies, as he normally does. But then he suddenly wakes up and he's at the stroke of midnight Halloween in the middle of Tokyo. In the middle of a particularly loud Halloween street party. So when he starts walking around in his typical robes, nobody bats an eye. He thinks he's in hell.
Does he think he's in hell? Yeah. I thought that would be the case.
And honestly, I frankly can't blame him. So he ultimately meets up with a singer who is very talented but is just not gathering the audiences and falls in with her. And pledges himself to basically help her achieve her dreams, which is to sing on the biggest stage in Japan. So yeah, that's been fun. He does things like he recreates the stone maze formation on a nightclub floor.
I see.
Which, yeah, like he explains how he does it and how it is actually done, which is, taking advantage of a rolling fog bank and screwing with people's perceptions. So he does that again, just to stop people leaving so they listen to her performance. So I thought that was where it was going to go, but then he kind of spends an entire episode bouncing around Roppongi for absolutely no reason, it seems. But he turns up in the next episode. Turns out he's been scouting a rapper. And the latest episode is essentially just a rap battle between this rapper and Zhuge Liang. And he blatantly admits to cribbing out a Cao Cao's book for the poetry.
See.
He also seems to get, for obvious reasons, he gets upset whenever people start going on about Marsu. For those who aren't familiar with Three Kingdoms, Marsu was Zhuge Liang's nephew, I believe, who led a failed military operation, and Zhuge Liang had to execute him as an example. One of the first things he actually says, by the way, when waking up in the morning is, "You feed Sima Yi," and I'm half expecting Sima Yi just to turn up.
Yeah, I'm totally expecting there'll be a rival strategist will appear.
Yeah, the intro movie or the intro cutscene seems to hint at that, and I'm expecting that to be Sima Yi.
Like, because their rivalry is so tied up in both of their characters that it would be strange for him not to appear, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, that plays out through all Japanese media as well. That's why you've got Rhinus plays host to Sima Yi as a pseudo-servant, the way Waver plays host to Zhuge Liang.
How flamboyant is that version of Sima Yi?
That version of Sima Yi is like, in the case of Waver, Zhuge Liang basically decides, you can have all my power, but I'm out. I can't be bothered with this. I was expecting an easy retirement.
Mm-hmm.
But Sima Yi basically still sees Waver as sort of like necessary to oppose because he's sort of, the de facto inheritor of the Zhuge Liang legacy, but also takes a back seat, like gives Rhinus control over the body and the personality. However, Rhinus makes it pretty clear that Sima Yi is still there in the background and basically passing snarky comment at everything that happens.
Oh, I love it.
And so she ends up like basically her personality meshes quite well with hers, since her basically raison d'etre is to troll her brother. So
yep.
They get along relatively well, but I suppose that since Rhinus is a girl, then when Sima Yi has to repeat the whole wearing women's clothes thing, it doesn't look so bad this time.
Yeah. That seems to be a common theme with every incarnation of Sima Yi is, doesn't matter what universe he's in, he might be incredibly flamboyant, he might be devious, but he is always a snarky asshole. So, yeah. I definitely recommend going and watching Your Boy Kong Ming. It's a lot of fun.
That name, though.
Oh, that name. It kind of fits because, like, he realizes he's dead and he's died. He's no longer in his own world anymore. And the first thing he does, actually, once he figures out how the internet works, is looks up how the Three Kingdoms period ended.
I think it's more interesting how it's remembered.
Yeah. And they do touch on that a bit. And there's other little nuggets that they throw in there, like a little throwaway line that he once borrowed red hair off Guan Yu. And it didn't end well.
Red hair was Lu Bu's horse.
Post-mortem. Guan Yu took him after Lu Bu's death. Where am I supposed to be going? Here? Yeah, here.
Although in Type Moon, Red Hair thinks that he is Lu Bu.
He might very well be.
No, he's definitely not.
He's definitely not. He's a weird...
Try telling him that.
Yeah, he's a weird backward centaur thing.
He is also Gudiko's favorite servant.
I mean, that's understandable. He is a lot of fun.
Best not to think about that too hard.
Don't think about it at all. So yeah, go watch Your Boy Kong Ming. It's fun. It shouldn't work, but it definitely does. Although, it also helps that he gets employed at a bar, and where Aiko, the girl, works. And it just so happens that the bar owner is an absolute Three Kingdoms nerd, so that helps. The other anime I watched is I'm Quitting Heroing, which is the one about the jerk who basically saves the world from the Demon Queen and then gets turned out by everyone because they expect him to be the next Demon King.
I've never seen a Demon King with that much waifu energy.
She does have a lot of waifu energy. I'm lost.
Are you in third turn?
I'm in third turn.
Yeah, you're gonna be lost.
Yeah.
Just keep bumbling around. You'll get there in about 30 minutes.
Right, that's not helpful.
I'm not even joking.
I'll just keep bumbling about then. So yeah, he gets turned out by the Human Kingdom, so he falls in with the very Demon Queen that he just defeated. She's obviously not happy about it, but her advisors are kind of on board with it. So he basically sneaks under her radar. Oops, that's entirely backwards now. What I wasn't expecting, I was expecting a kind of a light comedy, silly kind of deal, which you kind of get. I wasn't expecting it to be nearly so wholesome, though.
But I feel like, based on the most recent episode that I watched, like somebody, like maybe the author of the original material, because it definitely has a light novel name, so it's probably a light novel, probably had some social problems in the past.
Yeah, maybe.
Because the entire thing is about educating one of the characters on how to learn good communication skills.
Yeah, and ultimately he does this whole big contrived thing trying to teach her how to communicate. And then it just turns out that all he needed to do was just tell her.
I'm not 100% convinced that it is a male or a female.
I'm thinking female, but
A very, very flat-chested female?
Yes. There's too much happy there. I mean, this is a demon general who turns in all her reports and they're in crayon.
Oh, you're talking about the beast one.
Yeah.
I was talking about the assassin.
Oh, the assassin? Apparently that's male.
Yeah, except that he spends an awful lot of time wearing a waitress costume.
Okay, I haven't actually watched the latest episode. I must have just rolled in yesterday.
That's the latest episode, and it is basically he is socially retarded.
Yeah,
because he's an assassin, and he was raised to be an assassin
and
since he was
edgelord.
born. Well, it's not really that he's an edgelord, because an edgelord implies a certain amount of choice.
Yep.
But he was just raised to be an assassin, so he has no empathy for others, period. And this is impeding his ability to serve as the HR department for his particular part of the army.
Whee. Alright, so yeah, the last episode I watched is Leo ultimately ends up stuck in an awkward dinner party with the Demon Queen,
Who is getting progressively drunker.
but never seems to reach the point where she goes and falls over.
Yeah, I actually gave up before she did,
Yeah.
because I was trying to match her.
Oh,
It was not
yeah,
working.
don't do that.
I felt rather sick.
So that was a whole lot of fun. Now, I'm not there's a few like serious picks for this anime season, but I think I'd prefer just the fluffy stuff this time around. The fun.
Yeah, I've been skipping most of the series. Some of them have been getting like really freaking bad. Like the writing has just gotten worse and worse as they've gone along. I think the worst example of that was the season's version of the Demon King reincarnates as some other guy.
That just
And
looks terrible.
it's not only did it start terrible, that the writing has actually gotten worse as it's gone along.
Oh no.
Like, it's just like, I think that I would have thought it was extremely cool when I was 11. But by the time I turned 13, I would have started to cringe.
Yep.
And if something that can make a 13-year-old cringe is extremely cringe.
Yes. Yes, it is. I'm horribly lost. But I think I'm finding my way through, maybe. Who designed this? Seriously.
That's Third Coil.
That's the Goyle.
I really don't like that stage.
Thankfully, you never have to do it again after you do it once.
Yeah. Okay, here's another terminal.
The one in the Hulk I also hate. Where you're looking for the bulkheads.
Oh, that one.
That's even more confusing.
Alright. So that's basically been it for my week. The rest of it's just been work. Oh, apparently I found the end, I think. I just got the map achievement at least. There's more layers. I haven't found the end at all.
The only thing you can really do is just sort of head around. Just wander about. I presume that there is a method that you're supposed to use to complete it in an optimal time, but every time I go in there, it's just like bumble.
Yeah, it looks like you're supposed to
And
jump
then it's
through the
over.
rings to get to the optimal path. So I think that's where. But,
Believe me, there are actually worse stages.
eh. It's not really intuitive. Is it? Wait, no, that's backwards. Up and down and up and down, and this place is a nightmare. Anyway, so that's basically it for my week. So who wants to go next?
I guess it's me, but I don't have much to talk about. I thought that I was going to have a week with a lot of free time in it. And, like, viewing it objectively, it seems like I sort of had a reasonable amount of free time, but I can't seem to think of what I did with any of it. It's quite perplexing. I'm not quite sure what happened. Yeah, so I did get to play some Final Fantasy because for some reason Ari kept being awake at weird times of the night. So I was able to go and, do another run through Elgaia, which we should talk about at some point because
should. I forgot about Elgaia actually.
because we did that.
That was this week.
Yeah. But yeah, I so far I have never seen a piece of tanking gear drop in there. And I'm pretty sure that they have reduced the rate of tanking gear drops because there's only one in a group.
Yep.
And so you're pretty much guaranteed to win it if it does drop. But it's still it is kind of frustrating. Like this is the counterbalance to the fast queues that you get as a tank queuing for alliances, is that, well, you can queue for it, but you're almost certainly not going to win anything because you almost certainly won't see anything. and that's sort of a frustrating experience in its own way. The counterbalance, I suppose, is that you always get your coin reward, and you always get what's the other one?
Your
The tomestones.
Yeah, and the clusters, the crack clusters.
You only get that in the. Do you get that from if you queue directly for it? I don't even know.
I thought you did. You might only get it from the roulette, but I thought you did.
It's not telling me because I'm in the wrong class.
What? There wasn't even a boss in there.
Maybe you do. I think I do remember reading that somewhere. Anyway, so at least you always get some reward when you do it, which is good. But it's sort of, I feel like it's churlish of me to complain, but because as a career tank, I always get these fast queues, so I'm sort of spoiled that way. But it is frustrating, the reality that you know everybody has a better chance of getting loot than you, and you may just not see anything. So I've only done the place twice, but that's 2 runs where there was no loot for me. Which I don't know if it's worse than seeing it and then not winning it, or whether it's better. But yeah. Anyway, that's the way it is. And once I'm done running through the rest of the stuff, we can go through what we thought of it. But yeah, so I was able to do that, and I enjoy it generally. That's the thing with a lot of the content in Final Fantasy XIV is that I just generally enjoy the process, which is not something I can say about World of Warcraft. Like, I don't know what it's like now exactly, but I know that back when I was playing World of Warcraft intensively, there were points during the cycle of gear curves and of gearing alts and that where it was optimal to make sure that you did looking for raid every week.
Yeah.
And I deeply resented it.
Because it was dull.
Like, part of it is the fact that World of Warcraft is leans so heavily on the obligation aspect of things compared to Final Fantasy XIV, so you feel very pressured to do certain things all the time and make sure you check off your list of things to do. Whereas in Final Fantasy XIV, partly it's due to my attitude, but partly due to the structure of the game itself and the sheer amount of things to do, I don't feel such pressure. But
they just don't seem to have as many mandatory things that you need to do every day or every week for your main class.
They certainly have lots of those things to do that you could choose to view as mandatory and that might be optimal to do. However, the amount of punishment exerted on you for not doing it is pretty much non-existent unless you're a bleeding edge savage clearer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I meant. It's there's no system like the artifact power or whatever they use for the stupid necklace, or the stuff they had in
well, the borrowed power stuff aside, it's not. There were always like jobs that made you optimal in WoW, and there are those same types of jobs exist in Final Fantasy XIV, but because they have not coupled a sort of a brutal overriding system to it the way World of Warcraft does, the pressure is ratcheted way down, and the fact that I feel like, and I know this is not true in a strict sense for people who play Savage, but it feels like less of a numbers game in Final Fantasy XIV. Like, there is a lot you can do with playstyle optimization rather than raw numbers, and you can leverage that for advantage at a lower tier of play than you really can in World of Warcraft, where you need to you don't really, in my experience doing Mythic in World of Warcraft was that you basically are operating on the basis of outgearing things even in Mythic unless you're at the absolute bleeding edge, and I was not bleeding edge. I got my ahead of the curves. I did that stuff. I played at the top level, not the top level, but I played at the top level, and ultimately I'm not that skilled of a player in video games generally, but I still had my top 10 passes and stuff because your sort of gap between skill floor and skill ceiling for a lot of classes is just not very broad.
Mm-hmm.
But apart from maybe Summoner, the gap between skill floor and skill ceiling for most classes in Final Fantasy, especially DPS, is very, very broad.
I'm not double weaving Ricochet with the single target burst on Mechanist. Sorry.
You
Not
gotta
doing
do it.
Yeah, I just choose not to. Most of the time, I just choose not to because it's a headache.
It is a headache. I'm used to
No,
it at this point, but yeah, it's still a headache.
And I mean, Ari might whinge about it, but he has a decent ping.
Yes.
I don't. Fern doesn't.
You gotta rely
Only-
on that queuing.
Only reason Fern does it is because he's a machinist main.
Yes.
Anybody who plays it as an alt job probably won't bother unless they're trying to play at a serious level, because it's a nuisance. It's a huge nuisance.
Yeah.
But yeah, aside, like I was saying, aside from Summoner, which seems to have, like, I've only got a minuscule amount of experience playing Summoner, but it seems to have a very rote rotation. The only thing that really requires, reaction and decision making is, which primal am I going to go for in this phase of the fight? And
Yeah,
there are certain ways in certain fights to do that very wrong, but most
Yeah.
of the time it's not going to matter.
In 99% of the cases, it doesn't matter what color Lego you pick. Sometimes Ifrit can get you killed if you're trying to healers adjust while you're diving into the AoEs to go do your 2 melee attacks before you run back out again.
Well, there's also things like dropping the AoE dot when the boss is going to wander off or whatever. Like things that they doesn't make sense to do. Like, you need to know the fight roughly, but what you have to do as a player doesn't seem to vary up all that much. So it's quite a simple class to play. There's still a certain amount of room to optimize, but it seems to be, to me, like it's almost unique in that sense, because most classes have a lot of sort of fine tuning that you can engage in at quite a low level of play. Like, you can smooth things over for your group quite effectively, irrespective of plus or minus a stat point here and there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to sneeze, but I couldn't decide how long it was going to be until I sneezed.
Hate that.
Anyway, so yeah, all that navel gazing aside, I enjoy the process of doing the content, and I don't resent doing the content the way I did in World of Warcraft. And I got to the point of resentment very quickly in World of Warcraft. I'm sort of like, I'm musing on the topic. I can't really come to a conclusion about what really is the difference between an Alliance raid and LFR that makes them feel so radically different.
Yeah.
And because, I mean, they're essentially the same thing, right? There's this raid that you queue up for weekly with a bunch of randoms who want to get you killed, and it just doesn't play out that way in Final Fantasy XIV. It's just a good experience for everybody involved. And the only thing I can conclude, and this is the sort of conclusion that makes WoW players really mad, is that the average caliber of the Final Fantasy XIV player base is just higher. Like, when you dip into a group, everybody is just better trained on how to basically execute the game.
Yeah, they seem to be a lot. We have the odd mechanist in Diamond Weapon who's just special, but for the most part, there's a lot of really lethal mechanics for the Alliance raids from all the way back in the Rabanastre raids. And,
well, you didn't play Labyrinth when it was new, and I'm here to tell you there was lots of lethality there as well.
Well, yeah, but if we're comparing the modern player bases, I don't think the LFR group could do like even Copied Factory.
If there's any lethal mechanics in a LFR, the player base starts to shriek.
It's because half
the experienced players shriek because they wipe because half the players die, and the players who aren't experienced shriek because they die.
Yeah, half of the raid is asleep in an LFR raid is the problem. No one's paying attention.
The raids in Final Fantasy, I think the level of engagement hits a nice balancing point where the fights are interesting enough and require enough brain power that you actually have to pay attention.
Yeah,
because stuff will kill you if you do the mechanic wrong. Like there's stuff in those fights, a ton of it in the in several raids that just outright kill you.
Oh, yeah.
And-
I feel visually, and on some level, people feel more engaged with it because it looks pretty. Like there's a certain amount of communication taking place between the developer and the player about what this fight is and what it means, and people can develop an affection for particular things, maybe antipathy for others. But there's something about the mechanics. Like, generally speaking, my experience with World of Warcraft raids is that mostly bosses make puddles.
Yeah.
They
Honestly,
poop on the floor, and like there's no equivalent. There's no equivalent to say, let's just pick a boss at random that we'll discuss shortly, like Ralga punching into the portal and an enormous fist shooting down one side of the screen. Like, that's a simple AoE column, but the visual language it's using is much more engaging than
Yeah.
what you normally see in World of Warcraft.
I think
It means
that's-
something independent of the mechanic.
Yeah. I think that's just a big part of what makes endgame in Final Fantasy, well, not even just endgame, every dungeon, aside from the early ones, better than WoW, is just presentation.
And
But-
on the mechanical level as well, I feel like the fights in boss fights generally in Final Fantasy XIV, they speak a visual language that people feel they can comprehend and learn in a way that seems to vary from fight to fight in World of Warcraft. Like, by the time you've made your way through Stormblood, and nowadays with the revamps to the end of MSQ in A Realm Reborn, is going to come in even earlier. Most people know what a tank buster marker looks like, what a stack tank buster marker looks like, what a stack up marker looks like, what a line stack looks like, what a proximity marker looks like, what a flare marker looks like. People learn these things organically, so when they come into a fight, they know immediately what to pull from their library of immediate initial reactions when they see a mechanic, so that they don't feel completely at sea with the thing. Like, it feels like a challenge that you can reasonably engage with, sight unseen. Like, I think that I could have bumbled my way through Elgaia relatively effectively without any kind of guide, and the only reason I looked at a guide is because, like I said, I'm a career tank, and I have a responsibility to the group not to clown it up too often.
Yeah, I had my clown shoes on that day, that first time. It,
The only reason I really feel I need to watch videos for fights are there, with few exceptions, the raids are generally pretty good about non-ground telegraphed attacks being telegraphed by animation, but you still have to know where that's going to hit. And also, color matching has become a really popular mechanic lately, or color doing the opposite color.
yeah.
if you're marked with one color.
Yeah. You need to know whether it's opposite day or whether it's matching day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every now and again, there's just a mechanic in there. You just need that prompt.
Yeah, so you don't want to be the guy that doesn't notice that the big giant machine boss in Copied Factory is winding up his big fist punch
Yeah.
and is gonna nuke literally half the arena and one shot everybody on it and get walloped by it.
Ralga's
Especially if you're a
actually-
key roll.
Yeah, Ralga, I think, actually is a good example of that, because you've got the portal where he's punching through, but you've also got a proximity AoE marker on the floor. And instead of what you're normally supposed to do is get away as far away as possible from the proximity marker. In Ralga's case, you're supposed to stand on it.
Only
Well-
if he's punching a portal that is on an angle. If he's punching a portal that is level, then you don't want to.
Then you don't want to, exactly.
And
So that's the sort of thing that a guide is handy for, but it's not essential. You can
Yeah,
figure
and-
that
and
stuff
for
out kind of organically or just by watching everyone else.
for that particular mechanic as well, I don't think the scattered meteors are lethal. They'll put a bone stack on you and get you really low. But I don't think I saw anybody that failed that mechanic die outright to it.
I also haven't seen anybody go and stand under them, so I don't know for sure.
Yeah. That's a degree of failure that I have not seen yet.
But yeah, anyway, we'll cover that in detail in a bit once I've swept away the rest of my week. So yeah, I enjoyed my time with Final Fantasy XIV. I didn't play as much as I wanted because I was distracted by various other things. One of which was my poor decision of dinner one night, which ended up coming back to visit me repeatedly. Ugh. So I'm here to tell you that chili and squid dumplings are delicious, but your
yes.
body will not thank you for eating them.
I've made that mistake, well, once before, actually. Worth it.
I'm on the fence as to whether or not it was worth it because I like being able to sit down.
Just give it a few months, you'll forget how bad it was afterwards, and you'll think, oh, those would taste really good right now.
Oh,
and then,
almost certainly. Like, there's still half a bag of them in the freezer.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to get cooked up and eaten, and it probably won't even be very long before I do it.
I'm having... I keep doing it with a packet of sugar-free mints. I should not eat those things.
Those even have a warning on the packet. You have no excuse, sir.
Well, normally I can eat one and I'll be fine. But not every time. And I have no idea what's going on. So I should probably just avoid them altogether. Those things are horrible too when they kick in. Anyway, can we talk about something other than poop?
Yeah, so, let's see. Gotcha. So, the ReZero event is on Pinecone, and it seems like it's definitely for ReZero fans because these characters are really not endearing themselves to me. I haven't finished the story yet because I haven't set aside the time to watch it. But, yeah, I'm not sure why people like these characters.
I think
Why-
people like
why-
watching Subaru get wrecked over and over again. I think. People
So
just
that
enjoy
does have a certain amount of enjoyment value to it. I have a certain amount of tolerance for Ram particularly because she is unrelenting in her abuse of Subaru.
Oh yeah, she just doesn't care anymore.
But like I don't know, like the internet was absolutely clogged with people who were busy waifuing over Amelia and Rem, and neither of them are even remotely appealing characters. And I just don't grasp. I don't
Amelia-
grasp what the big deal is.
Amelia is just wet. And-
Amelia, I don't get at all. Amelia's, from what I can tell, supposed to be written kind of flat, but Rem gets a lot in the series that, in case you want to watch it, I don't want to super spoil for anybody because it's become a topic lately. But Rem is endeared by what she goes through in the series and her history and her past and how Subaru helps her through that.
It's just
After
that
she kills him a few times.
What's presented to me as an outsider playing a tie-in event is this sort of like nauseating simp for a person who has done nothing to really justify nauseating simpering.
Yeah.
Yeah, it happens after the second arc, but before the third arc, where Subaru's growth as a person really starts to kick in.
Where he actually starts becoming a decent human being.
Yeah.
So she simps for him when he's not a decent human being. This doesn't sound like a selling point.
Well, because that was his start of the journey down towards acting like a decent human being, was getting attached to Rem and then losing access to Rem.
When you put it like that, it sounds really weird.
Yeah.
Because Subaru's weird.
Ugh. Anyway, yeah. It's the story does not resonate with me so far. It's largely because the characters don't resonate with me at all. Like it's I just don't want to commit to watching a series that managed to offend me so much by the pilot. Because it was such a well-produced, high-production value pile of garbage.
Yeah. I admit, though, I did enjoy, to a degree, those characters in Isekai Quartet. Because they're just taken to their own logical extremes.
You say that, but I don't think that Amelia changed at all.
No, she's still damp.
Amelia's a piece of cardboard.
Yeah.
Even after... well, it happened so near the end of the latest season that got released. It's hard to tell what kind of impact her remembering her past is going to do to her as a character, because she's been stuck as cardboard since she was introduced until that happened, because she had forgotten most of her past, and in a flashback of her remembering all of this stuff, she seems to be setting up for some kind of character growth, but the season ends is right after it happens.
Yeah.
So she's cardboard all the way through. I don't know why anybody likes Amelia.
She's not even. She doesn't even have like a unique aesthetic or anything. Like,
She-
I'm not.
She's the fake out waifu.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's very. It's a very strange phenomenon, but yeah, there are stranger waifus to pick, I guess.
Yeah.
There is Kuka.
Yeah, you seem to be waifuing Kuka pretty hard, which is highly disturbing. But yeah, so I mean, the event. Pinecone events tend not to be very imaginative. They always seem to follow the same mechanic.
They'll eventually get a little more inventive with them, but we're stuck with this type of event for at least a little bit longer.
Yeah, I'm always a bit torn on how I should treat them, but so far I've just been blowing all of my EXP on the event because, well, apart from I'm still trying to get like any Shiori shards to drop at all, so I at least do 3 of those stages every day. And I do one of the higher level of the Sanctum surveys every day. But other than that, I dump all the EXP into the event because of that delicious 50% bonus. And leveling up seems to be one of the things that's really bracketing me right now, although it's starting to diminish in favour of my inability to raise my character's levels.
EXP pots. Yep.
Yep.
How do high-end players raise enough EXP and mana to keep going? I don't even understand it.
So, mana isn't... It gets better once you hit cap because mana doesn't scale as out of hand as EXP does.
And I suppose as long as you keep getting access to newer dungeons, the amount of mana you get goes up.
Yeah, and the monthly 7 or 8 day double dungeon mana really helps skyrocket it, and level 7 grottos every day. Mana generally isn't a problem. The problem is EXP pots.
Well, the thing is that mana will become a problem if you spend it on EXP bots.
Yeah, that's the issue, is playing the balancing act of how many EXP pots do I want to buy and how many days in advance do I want to buy them and for how many days. I've seemed to hit a fairly good rhythm with just buying the bonus shop ones, and then as a new level cap is approaching, for about 5 or 6 days, just buying out all the EXP potions in the shop at least once a day, and that's usually enough to kick me just over the line to get all my main characters up to the new level cap. Heckle.
Heckle.
Yeah, I feel like I'm being bracketed by an awful lot of different resources from an awful lot of different angles, and every aspect of the game seems to be frustrating me. You only have to go a few days getting 0 shards from your hard mode farming before you start to wonder if the game is trolling you. But
that's been my Kyoka shard experience. I think I'm all week I've gotten 2 shards.
Yeah, no dat feel. But yeah, so I'm just sort of chugging along with that. Like I've said before, and it continues to hold, the only reason it can justify my continued playing is that the actual effort output is input is required is incredibly low.
It's 2 toilet trips a day.
If I was... yeah, I had a lot of time because of that squid. Yeah. But yeah, it's only justifying itself because it doesn't require much effort put in, because certainly if it required a lot more interaction, it wouldn't. But because I'm not putting a lot of interaction and I'm still continuing to lose every PvP match categorically, oh well, can't have everything. Once I've got a few more characters available, then I'll have to have a look at it. But yeah, it's that PvP thing has been very frustrating to me, because while I was quite blessed in some respects as far as which characters I pulled, not pulling any supports to speak of has basically hamstrung me. Like I don't have any Saren, I don't have any Monica, I don't have any of those. I don't have Kyoka for the deeps, magic deeps. I'm just missing a lot of stuff. So I'm extremely tank heavy and not really anything else heavy.
Well, you got Makoto and Murder Hobo.
Yeah, Murder Hobo is good, but Murder Hobo doesn't seem to ever get round to Murder Hoboing. She almost always dies before she can, because when she kicks, she advances so much that she ends up in the front rank and gets targeted instead of the tank, which is dumb.
Yeah. Yep. You need you need to somehow. She works really well with regular Kuka, actually, because regular Kuka has a skill taunt, not a Union Burst taunt. So regular Kuka can keep the melee people from beating up on Murder Hobo.
Murder Hobo.
Yeah, and Makoto is good, but in PvP, just not very good. Like she does the damage. She definitely does the damage, and if she can get her Union Burst off, it'll probably delete somebody. But also, she almost always misses. So what are you gonna do?
Yeah, there's probably a Maho in the back that's blinding her.
There's always a Maho in the back. Another support character I didn't pull because I don't have any support characters.
Makoto is a very useful niche tool once you get really up in the ranks, because she can she's the facilitator for breaking through a wall of tanks.
Yeah, well, the thing is that I'm not dealing with Wall of Tanks as a problem right now. I'm still, at the sub 1000 level, where people aren't really doing the Wall of Tanks strat. Although I'm sort of tempted to do it myself because I drop so many ranks all the time. Like, if I just train up because I've got Pekkarin's unique equipment, and she's at like 3-star or something. And I've got Jun, and I've got Nozomi, and I've got the samurai girl. What's her name? I don't remember. Ruka. I've got Ruka as well. I've got a whole pile of tanks. Like I said, I'm extremely tank heavy. So I'm tempted to just... I've got like Pudding goes to like 4-star now. So I could just like stack all of my tanks up and give them a healer, and just hopefully that will make people think it's too much work to attack me, and so I won't constantly drop a jillion ranks a day. But
then just stick your best healer in the back and hope they're too dumb to run into Maki. Actually, if you're running Nozomi and you're running I think Nozomi might be able to taunt it off with the right timing.
Yeah, well, we'll have to see. But yeah, I feel like I'm fighting a losing battle for the most part in PvP because I have all of the tanks, and none of the support. I don't have the detective girl. I don't have Maho. I don't have Monica. I don't have well, I could just go through a list of all the ones I don't have, which is all of them. So yeah, if anything that is not like 1 or 2 star support, I don't have, and I don't have Kuka either. So yeah,
you don't have regular Kuka?
No, I don't have regular Kuka.
Oh man.
Unfortunately, that means that she's constantly sitting at the top of my character list asking for me to buy her outright.
Yeah, June's like that for me.
You're going to get her the second that you buy her. That's the problem.
I've got like 275 June shards. It's nuts.
But yeah. Anyway, so that's Pinecone. FGO is also doing an event. They're doing the Requiem tie-in event, which is interesting. It's board game themed, and I'm very. It's got a very odd vibe to it. It feels in sort of atmosphere kind of different to most FGO events. Like, I mean, it's not Gouda Gouda, obviously. Only Gouda Gouda is Gouda Gouda. I saw somebody the other day refer to Gouda Gouda as like the Gintama of FGO events.
Oh dear.
But yeah. This is a very strange event that is centered around Voyager's attempts to find Eris. And the world in which it takes place is sort of a pocket universe built out of board games, essentially. And so you start off in the first one as sort of like a Monopoly tie-in. So you do free quests to earn dice, which you'll roll dice to move around a Monopoly board, and you'll land on squares which will have a quest associated with them, and you collect tokens and things for the characters. And when you've got a certain number of the characters' tokens, then you can unlock various other quests and so on and so forth. And the story itself is just driven by the amount of progress that you've made in collecting tokens, which is just done by moving around the Monopoly board. So yeah, so you've got this dice rolling thing, and you've got different types of dice as well. You've got a regular one, six-sided dice, and you've got one that only has numbers one to three on it. There's a type that only has 4 to 6 on it, and there's some rare types that have specific numbers only on them that you have to purchase. Yeah, so because you can only get things from a certain square and a certain number of times, you've got to sort of you play a meta game of moving efficiently around the board by using special dice to try and avoid squares that you're not going to get any real benefit from. But yeah, so the story is completely disconnected from this mechanic, though, oddly enough. And as you progress through that primary mechanic, the story will just unlock through basically a combination of time and having played. And the story is quite odd. Like it really starts to kick in the second chapter, which is a sort of like the first game is your introduction to your core mechanic, which is the Monopoly board. But the second one is a game of Werewolf, which is interesting and engaging because it's a different tone to what you normally get. It's got a tone more reminiscent of Salem, I suppose, than most other FGO stories, which I suppose Salem was the in-universe equivalent of a werewolf game. But
Your waifu is sus.
so the thing is, this is played by the cast of the werewolf board is all the French servants basically.
Oh no, the French are dying.
So the problem with it is it's really engaging initially because it's not something you see done in FGO very often. They've done mystery stories before, but the problem is that it's a game of werewolf, and this is why it's engaging. But this is also why it's unbelievably annoying and frustrating, and it's because ultimately FGO is a linear narrative with no branch points.
Mm-hmm.
And it's transparently obvious from quite early on that you're being manipulated, but because there are no decisions in FGO, you have no choice but to go along with it.
Yeah.
It's just like, please, no, we want to execute that guy. No, why? Why are you doing this? No, don't agree with him. He's clearly calling the shots here. He's got everyone wrapped around his little finger. Why are you... No, there we go again.
Yeah. Like, that's the whole point of Werewolf, is to figure it out and act upon the information you've been able to glean. But when you got to sit through a narrative and you know who it is, and it's plainly obvious you know who it is, but the characters don't know because, yeah, I don't know why.
Yeah, there's still one thing that wasn't perfectly clarified about the game, and that's who the fanatic was. And I had suspected that the villain, because while there are technically two werewolves, they eliminate one very early on for plot reasons.
One of them's got to be Guy de Raycaster.
No, he wasn't featured because regular Guy de Ray was there.
Oh, okay.
But,
the boring Guy de Ray.
Yeah, but I had the only thing that was in my mind that I wasn't sure about was whether the character I suspected was the werewolf or the fanatic. He could have been the fanatic as well, but other than that, I mean, both of those are bad things. You want rid of both of them, so. Yeah, but it was quite frustrating. So for the first part of it, I was very engaged with it, and I was really enjoying myself. But as it became more and more and more blatantly obvious that all the characters should be picking up on it, who was the villain here, and your complete inability to do anything about it was very, very frustrating to me. But yeah, that's as far as I've played through the event so far. I think it's going to be a 2-week event, which is good because I need the time. I actually these events have started to move at the 2-week pace is almost too short for the amount of grinding that you have to do. But people get really mad every time they do a 3-week event because it seems that there is a certain class of people who have nothing but free time to play FGO all the time, and they get bored in a 3-week event because they farm the shop out.
Yep.
But yeah. Unfortunately, that's just the way these games are, and I've backed off a lot on taking FGO seriously because I've built up such a humongous reservoir of resources in most respects that I just don't need to concern myself with it anymore. Because my concern was always running up against something that I can't do because lack of resources, but that's basically not a problem for me anymore. So while it is painful and frustrating not to get crystallized laws, reality is I'm probably not going to use most of them, and because I've got like 40 or 50 in stock now, and there's just not a good reason to raise that many servants to 10, 10, 10 or whatever. So yeah, provided I continue to get them at a modest pace, I don't need to stress too much over the events. But yeah, it's an odd story that's got a strange atmosphere to it. It feels a little bit oddly Persona-y compared to most FGO events
That's
in
not
terms of
necessarily a bad thing.
atmosphere. In that it's just got a slightly more somber sort of atmosphere than you normally expect. There's still those moments of levity, but you've also kind of got a group of downers with you for the most part. Like, well, that's not necessarily true. You have Edgemere, who is the biggest problem, because he's just like a cynic par excellence all the time. And it basically never lets up on dragging the mood down. And you've got Voyager, who's basically, you know, an airhead and doesn't really contribute much to lifting the mood. Nursery Rhyme is with you from the start, and although she steps out of the story later on and is replaced by Marie, who at least is a bit more upbeat.
Yeah, Nursery Rhyme looks like a cute little girl, but
She's kind of dark.
kind of dark. She takes after the Brothers Grimm nursery rhymes,
But
not the Disney ones.
But yeah, Marie Antoinette on the other hand is a bit more of an upbeat character, and she's just stepped in place of Nursery Rhyme. Although Voyager doesn't like her much for reasons that haven't been made clear, since basically everybody loves Marie in FGO, even the guy that executed her loves her.
Yeah, which is kind of weird.
Yeah, and so is he. But there you have it. But yeah, so you've also got Edison with you for some reason, who his justification for coming along on this little jaunt is that, oh well, he considers himself Voyager's de facto legal guardian because Murica.
I see.
This seems like an acceptable reason.
I mean, it's Edison. It's about the only reason he really needs to do anything.
Because Murica is generally good enough. I'll
Yeah.
take that reasoning.
Well, I mean, Voyager was launched by NASA, so
Yeah.
that's his rationale. But yeah, and he does basically nothing but burble incoherently most of the time.
Sounds about right.
They during the early stages of the werewolf game, house rule gets passed early on that each of the characters is only allowed to speak for 10 minutes each day. And, well, 10 minutes of their in-universe time, which is like 2 text boxes for us. But in each case, when it's Edison's turn to speak, he'll make a brief statement followed by a statement in parentheses saying something like, Edison wastes the next 10 minutes expounding on the minutiae of this.
Honestly,
pretty-
every time I've seen Edison in the FGO is, unless Tesla is around, he's useless.
If Tesla's around, his usefulness drops even further.
He's
because
double useless. Yes.
He would just argue with Tesla about whether direct current or alternating current.
Yeah.
Like, the reason the house rule actually gets passed is that the discussion on day one devolves immediately into a discussion of the merits of various forms of lynching.
Oh dear.
Like, because the default is hanging, but Sanson doesn't approve of it because
There's not enough heads being chopped off.
because it's not a guillotine.
Yes.
And Edison immediately steps in to talk about how this is it's at least it's not the horrible alternating current based electric chair.
Yeah.
And then continues to go on about that for some time.
Yeah. That's
and-
the whole point of Edison is if Tesla's around, you can just put those two in a corner somewhere, and that's it. You don't need to worry about them too much. Okay, you should worry.
Anyway, yeah. So the event has only just started a few days ago. I haven't fallen way behind yet, which is interesting because I normally do, but I'm sure I'll change that before long. Because the main thing that makes you fall behind is not rolling on the gacha, and I'm still sore over my last 70 tickets that I blew, failing to get Sheet and I for the second banner in a row. Because the gacha hates me. Oh well, you can't have everything you want. We don't have a spark system yet, so yeah, I've got about 900 quartz put away for Castoria at this point, which if we had a spark system would be enough to spark her, but we don't, so but yeah. Anyway, anime wise, I don't think that I really added anything new to the repertoire except that I talked about last time, except for I watched this season's Real Estate based anime, and
It looks awful.
I can't recommend it.
Yeah.
It's a very cutesy and twee sort of version of the dragon looking for a house one, essentially. But number one, it's very cutesy and twee, and the art style is excessively twee. But the problem that they stacked on top of this is that it's also extremely sexualized. With that art style, like it's all about the booba.
But
Wait, what's the name of the
they're
show?
little girls. Yeah, you
RPG.
only heard booba. Wait,
No, well,
don't speak up here.
they're all drawn as little girls, but so is every other character in the cast, apart from like one.
I don't like this.
But they're sort of like all aged between like 16 and 20 something.
But they're all moe.
But they're not merely moe; they are moe blobs.
Yes.
Like there's nothing to them except for their stock character trait, their ridiculously twee art style, and booba. It's all about the booba. It's very unsettling watching that sort of degree of fan service be coupled to that type of drawing style.
Yeah, you gotta
It's like-
match them up.
It's like that drawing style is sort of like, it's like Lucky Star degree of detail.
Oh, that's nauseating.
But Lucky Star was not a fan service anime.
No.
So it didn't matter because they were just figures designed to carry out gags.
Yes.
But this is heavily fan servicey.
With highly detailed moe blobs.
No, they're not highly detailed. That's the problem.
I hate all this.
Normally, you couple high detail to fan service to some extent, right?
Yes.
Because they need to at least, the characters need to at least look alluring enough physically for the fan service to be carried off correctly.
Yes.
But that is not the case here.
They're
drawn in a
worse.
very rudimentary sort of fashion, except booba.
It keeps
Yeah,
getting worse.
It's just very weird, very strange, and I don't understand why they went for this sort of approach. Like, I've seen plenty of shows that do this sort of very fluffy, pastel-toned art style in the past.
Yeah.
But there's plenty of them. The problem is that even the ones that do have some fan service use a very light touch with it because it's not equipped for that, and they know that, oh, if you're using this art style, then what you do is you imply the fan service more than you actually apply it.
Yeah. Usually it's just cute girls doing cute things.
But in this case, it's like, oh, and then the characters go to the bath, and then the characters go and take a shower, and so on and so forth. And then the characters take a shower together for no reason.
What?
Like I said, it's very fan servicey, and I don't understand why, because it's just like, it's not appealing at all. Like, fan service is supposed to be appealing, but these characters barely even look like people because they're in a like excessively cutesy drawing style. So how could anybody find this arousing is just mystifying to me. I mean, I've seen worse, but not many times. But yeah. I've also I finished my rewatch of the first season of Shield Hero, and I started watching the second season of Shield Hero. Which, I mean, like I've mentioned before, I haven't read the source material, but this is an extremely weird navigational change for the storytelling, in my opinion. Like they set up an armature for the stakes and what is happening at the end of the first season, and then they basically at the beginning of the second season they shut all that down, and then go off and do something else, which is definitely tied to the main plot, but they went and killed the core mechanics that the main plot ran on beforehand.
Yeah, at the end of the previous season, really.
This is
No, at the beginning of this season.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I'm thinking of something different then.
You are thinking of something different. I don't know what you're thinking of, but so they set up basically a war between worlds at the end of the first season, and so they've got the waves are basically a timer that is being used in order to cause one world to win or the other world to win. Nobody in the cast is 100% sure exactly how this works, except that they need to win. And the beginning of the second season is like, oh, and the hourglasses stop ticking now, and we'll go and do something else.
What?
this
Like,
is
this just happens. It happens, and nobody explains it. Nobody even seems to think about it very much.
This is, I think, a consequence of them adapting, because originally it was a web novel,
Yes.
and the web novel had a different story route from the end of Bitch's Trial onwards that it followed, and it deviates right after that when they changed it up for the light novels. And I think what we're getting is mostly the jarring shake that comes with the narrative shift when they decided to change it for the light novel. Because they're adapting, from what I understand, they're adapting the light novels, not the original web novel.
Yeah.
But if they had moved off onto this track immediately after the trial, that would have made more sense. But introducing the party of heroes from another world and setting up that entire conflict on a personal level for the characters involved, and then just abandoning that track just as they were putting their foot down on the accelerator, it feels very strange. Like they hadn't at the time of the trial, they hadn't started to accelerate, right? Because that was the end of an arc where the church was interfering.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so you have the trial, you bring that church interference arc to an end, and then you start a new arc, and it makes sense to do it there, right? But when they went to the archipelago to train, and then they met that other party, and then they made friends with them, and then they made enemies with them, and so on. Like that's sort of like the end of prologue to a new arc. That's not the end of an arc.
Yeah, that's an arc hook.
So then going from the end of the prologue to a totally different story feels very jarring.
Yeah. How many episodes are you in season
5.
two? Okay.
5.
I think that's all that's out right now, unless a new one dropped when I wasn't looking.
Yeah.
How about that turtle CGI?
Turtle CGI was something else.
Like, we had CGI in the first season in a few places, and it looked a little janky with the dinosaur, but it didn't look near as janky as that turtle.
Turtle Pope.
The turtle is something special.
And what baffles me is in the intro, he looks fine.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. Production pipeline for these things can be quite strange. Maybe they had to redo something or something. But I mean, this has been in production for an eternity now, so I wouldn't expect it to have these sorts of problems.
Yeah, it's just you'll know it when you see it. But the more so than any of the hitting the story road bump is the turtle. I can't get over how ugly that turtle looks.
Well, I guess I didn't. Well, I thought the turtle was ugly, sure, but I guess I didn't fixate on it too much because I was so busy trying to pass out why we were dealing with the turtle all of a sudden. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But the whole thing just seems like a little bit out of left field for no real reason. Like this doesn't follow a normal story progression, and honestly, dragging the party of heroes from the other world back into the plot as well, completely separate from the waves system, also makes it even more jarring because it's like you had just got done telling me that they are tied up in this waves business, and now they're here for a reason that's totally not tied up in this waves business, because I guess everybody but me can randomly travel to other worlds for no reason. Like, it's not it's not I don't envy Naofumi at this point, because everything that he thinks he knows keeps getting overturned at a moment's notice.
Yeah.
Like, he just is constantly being fed new information which makes previous information untrue. No wonder he's in a bad mood all the time.
Yeah.
Or Naofumi. But
Yeah, it is what it is. I'll keep watching and see where it goes. Maybe they can tie this all up nicely, or maybe it'll become an even bigger mess. We'll just have to wait and see.
I have read ahead in the light novel, even though don't read the light novels for the series. The writing and the translation is awful. But this arc, if it ends where I think it's going to end in this season, it ends on another really cathartic and satisfying note. Almost too much so, in that it loops back around into being disturbing, which is how bad some characters get their comeuppance.
Yeesh.
Yeah, there seems to be a growing trend in a lot of these anime lately, is taking bad people and then punishing them in a way that becomes excessive, not necessarily because it is unjust, but because the pleasure being taken in the execution of this punishment is clearly too great.
Yeah.
Because the thing with punishment is that it should always satisfy justice. It should not be to satisfy the people involved who want revenge. Because there's no bottom to that.
Yeah.
Like, I deviate from what is popular these days, in that I think that retributive justice is important. I think that one of the purposes of the justice system, I don't believe that rehabilitative justice is the be-all and end-all. It is useful if you can rehabilitate someone, but I think the first purpose of justice is to ensure justice is served and that people get what's coming to them. However, it is very important that it be dispassionate. And the trend these days in fiction seems to be a very passionate inflicting of justice on people. So I think that's an unhealthy pop cultural trend, because it lends itself very naturally into sort of vigilanteism like cancel culture. Anyway, leaving that aside, I don't think I've got much else to talk about for my week.
Alright, and since I just beat the Avatar, incidentally, yeah, that was an interesting boss. He killed me a couple of times. The trick seemed to be to slow down.
Oh yeah, sometimes some of the bosses you want to fully resolve their mechanics, otherwise you'll get one shot.
Yeah, and he's one of them.
I haven't done it as a DPS before, so I
Yeah.
don't really know.
You kind of want to push it down slowly to about 50% and then nuke it. Because if you nuke it too fast, it'll just jump straight into ballistic missile, which will kill you.
Yeah. So, if you're at the end of a boss and we're at the end of All's week, we should probably take a break.
We should.
So here's some music. We'll be right back. And we're back.
Yes, we're back.
And I think we were at the end of Ball Sweep.
Yes.
Right, yeah. So, do you want to talk more generally about Aglaya now or at the end of your week?
My week doesn't have very much that's I can go into super detail about, so I can blitz through it real fast. This week I started booting up Final Fantasy XIV again and just started playing a bit more in general. And this was meant mostly going back to what I was doing before, which was leveling my Dark Knight and Bard. And this and a little bit on my Warrior as well, just to try and clear out some armory chest space, if nothing else. So I've been doing my as many roulettes as I can squeeze in during the days, but mostly I've been doing Palace of the Dead and Heaven on High. And I've after a long day of work, Palace of the Dead and Heaven on High, especially the earlier floors where I'm just farming pot shards or something, or trying to get a few more Aether Pool levels, it's a very zen activity.
Yeah.
I can't say I
Especially-
enjoy it all that much solo.
Yeah, I cleared the floor 110 in Palace of the Dead as a warrior. Their self-healing allowed me to go way further than I should have been able to with my Aether Pool level. I was in the mid-60s when I cleared floor 100. I'm in my mid-80s now on my Mechanist run through, but yeah, it was getting to be quite a rough slog after floor 100 because the mob health skyrockets, and if your Aether Pool arm isn't at 99, you're hitting like a wet noodle. So yeah, I had to just call it there. I just committed Sudoku at floor 111, and then restarted. And the guide said that Mechanist was really good. My Mechanist isn't leveled. It's been sitting at 30 since like ever. And so I decided to take Mechanist in there and see how it goes, which was where my comment from Ricochet came from, because I was trying, like every other floor, rearranging my bars to find a way to make this comfortable, to maybe find a way to double weave it, because I have the latency to maybe pull it off.
Yeah, you should.
It's a really tight window, even with good latency, because the ability you have to weave it with is a 1.5 second recast, not a 2.5 like most global cooldowns.
Yep, so you got to be pretty tight on it.
Like, you have to be really, really fast on it, and it's just, I don't main Mechanist, I don't care. It's 300 extra damage, whatever. I mean, it just ain't worth the headache. But that said, Mechanist at that level has been doing astronomically more damage than any other class I've taken in there. It's not even close.
It does stupid damage at low levels. It's actually a lot of fun.
The drill ability by itself can take off like half the health of a big chunky mob around floor 80 or 90.
Yep.
And that's
if there's
without
something
max
small
Aether
you
Pool.
need deleted, you just hit it with drill.
Yeah, and that's without 99 Aether Pool. It's and that thing only has a 20-second cooldown with no resource cost tied to it.
Yes.
And so now what's interesting when you start to get to the higher floors and stuff starts to really hurt, because you're a DPS class, you can't take too many. You can't just sit there and tank the mobs for the most part. You can if you're just pulling like one, but any more than that, and you're in trouble. So you have to kite mobs, and most mobs are not immune to the slow. And while you will kill them stupidly fast compared to other classes, you have to very carefully remember the exact path you took through every single room if you don't use a safety or sight while you're doing your kiting. And just hope to all get out that nothing spawned behind you.
Yeah.
Learning to kite in Palace of the Dead has been it's been an adventure that has resulted in very, very close calls that have made me have to mash the Witching Pomander button and then mash the Manticore button. So if I had not had lucky Pomanders on hand, my run would have ended. I'm on floor 90 now with my solo Mechanist run, which for a first time going through with no sustaining potions is really good, I think. Because DPS classes really need those sustaining potions that you can trade one pot shard for 10 for, because they're a stupidly huge heal that that basically lets you have a heal over time on you that's going to heal you for a zillion percent of your health for like 20 seconds or something like that, and it doesn't share a cooldown with the normal potions.
Yep.
So as a DPS, you kind of need those for some of the bosses that hit really, really hard. If you can't sprint kite them, because you can sprint kite bosses if they stop and cast. That's totally doable. You can cheese out most of their auto attack phase and get them into their next cast phase if you can sprint away to the other side of the arena. But like the next boss coming up though has a bunch of mechanics that require you to transform into the third type of transformation that I don't think you guys have seen yet. That turns you into an angel that drops a big beam of light. You've got to use this beam of light on the dead corpses of the ads he summons, otherwise the ads just keep coming back to life.
Right.
So I don't know if I'll be able to do floor 100 with the Mechanist, but we'll see. I'm having fun just learning the intricacies of how you can do it, and I find, unlike most roguelike stuff, it's remarkably consistent between runs. The only difference is the rewards you get. It just, the dice roll is really more on the rewards you're going to get at the end of it. The commanders seem to be fairly consistent on what you can get, and if you're just conservative with them, you'll wind up with a max inventory of every flavor of commander imaginable. So that's not really too much of an issue. And yeah, I've just been having fun going through and learning how to do that, and it doesn't take a whole lot of focus or brain power to do for the most part, other than learning the operations of new classes in general, because I don't play them, and the general intricacies of using that class solo against a boss that, well, strictly speaking, you can do it solo. It's highly recommended you don't. Let's put it that way. It's group content that is technically soloable with a big ol' asterisk there. But yeah, it's been an interesting run. I got Heaven on High solo past floor 50, and I did that with my Dark Knight, and that one was fairly straightforward. I had one repop on patrol happen on me on floor 51, and that run ended immediately because after floor 50, mobs hit way harder, and that was all she wrote for that run.
Yeah, figures.
But yeah. Also, I feel going through Palace of the Dead for classes that I haven't touched in forever or just don't understand very well gives you a very good feel for their either a recap or understanding of how you need to set up your bars and how your abilities flow, because you unlock them naturally, but still in a very quick sequence. So within about an hour, you've unlocked most of your abilities, and you can find where they're supposed to go on your bars, and that's especially important for controller. So I've been doing that for the most part. Turned on a few audiobooks, re-listened to some of the older Dresden Files books that I hadn't listened to in years, and just kind of chilled out for a little bit as much as I could. This was mostly in the middle of the night because my sleep schedule got royally screwed. I don't even remember how it got screwed. I think it was something to do with work. But I wound up back on my old sleep schedule of 2 to 4 hour sleeps a day instead of one big sleep, which I'm fine with. I actually prefer the sleep schedule, but I don't know how I fell back into it. And I imagine I'll fall back out of it after a particularly long day at work. I'll just crash for 12 hours and be back on the all-nighter cycle. So yeah, that's about all I got. Oh, and the United Arab Emirates tried to buy stuff from us this week, and it turned out to be a scam because everything from Dubai is a scam.
Yeah.
Well, it's not a scam. They were price fishing with every single representative in the United States of America. So I called the factory, and Tim, the guy that handles our stuff at the factory, is like, nah, don't worry about that. I've told 7 other reps to just ignore that email. So yeah, that was a thing. That's all I got for my week. We can talk about the raid, I guess, because that's something we did together.
All right, we can jump straight into that then. So yeah, the New Alliance raid was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that.
No trash. Well, there are 3 trash mobs.
Yeah, which are
in the whole dungeon.
They're all mini bosses.
Yeah, there are 2 trash packs in that total 3 mobs.
Yeah, it's not much. And honestly, I love that about the Final Fantasy raids, because it just feels like trash in, well, particularly in WoW. It just wastes your time.
And it's going to really ring hollow now when Blizzard trots out the same old excuse they always do for their players about how, oh, no, we need trash in the dungeon to properly pace it.
No, you don't. You don't. That's been crap since day one. So we've seen what a large-scale raid looks like without trash a few times now, and yeah, nothing was lost.
Yeah, it's way better without the trash.
Yeah, it just cuts to the fun bits.
So, I guess we can start on the aesthetic of the raid and what it's about. It's a fairly simple setup, so I don't feel like spoiling this intro bit is gonna offend anybody.
Mm-hmm.
You start. You get a message that you need to go check out something in Mordona, and Grahatia comes with you. And he's very excited.
I have to say it was quite adorable when the topic of going off to do this thing comes up, and he's like trying to hold himself back from immediately leaping at the opportunity to come along.
Yeah.
He has a squee building that he is doing his absolute best to keep suppressed. It shows him clenching his fist with a slow zoom in, and his ears waggling and his fur prickling.
Yeah. This is a squee, and it's gonna happen.
Yeah, so he's very excited to come with you on another adventure. So you take your resident fangirl catboy out with you. And you go find out what's up at Mordona. And you meet up with a representative from the dudes that we did the quest for the Crystal Tower with. And they point you in the direction of a dude in green who's just an adventurer, an explorer, and he has a monkey companion. And he's like, oh, by the way, I found a doorway that goes to the realm of the gods. Do you want to come check it out? I literally just walk into the lake you've run by 800 times, bro. Check this out. Look what the Calamity did.
Well, to be fair, did you ever just walk into the lake?
Nope.
No. And from the way the story implies, the gate wasn't actually functional until the Calamity. And that just recently happened. So this gate is now functional. And you could just walk on the water and walk in there. And you wind up in this stereotypical heavenly Mount Olympus type place.
Greco-Roman heaven.
Yes.
Yeah. And you show up and you're like, wow, this is weird. And then 4 of the gods of the 12 that have been background lore for the entirety of the game's history just show up and like, ah ha ha, we are going to take over the Eorzea now that Hydaelyn is not in the picture anymore. And you are going to stand out of our way, or we will crush you, unless you come fight us in a one-on-one battle.
Don't quit your day job.
Yeah.
And he is hamming it up to the fullest, but it's Final Fantasy, so it could be genuine. You're just not quite sure.
Oh, maybe it might have been genuine in the FF1 era. I don't think it's genuine given the writing that we've seen in FF14 so far. I think that they were their own worst enemy in that sense. Because people expect so much from the writing now that that's just not going to be credible. Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Too hammy.
And so they invite you to come challenge them for the right to rule over Eorzea in a series of one-on-one battles in arenas in a linear sequence.
Ha 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 ha.
Mwahahaha. And so you do this, and then afterwards, turns out they were just pulling your leg.
Yeah.
For some as of yet unknown reason, they are need to test the mettle of the Warrior of Light and the Champion of Eorzea, and we don't know why yet.
You know, the thing that I sort of observed in myself, having borne witness to the story as it played out, was that I would have been livid at the story as presented if it had been presented to me by Blizzard, because it's so rudimentary and really just I would not trust this writing from another team. But I have
Yeah,
faith that it will pay off because it's always paid off before from the FF team.
Yeah, if it was Blizzard, they'd be doing it entirely straight. The gods have come down, and they're here to take over the world for reasons.
The worst you'll get from Final Fantasy is mediocre and forgettable. You're not going to get something objectively bad. So you know they're going somewhere with it.
You say mediocre and forgettable, but even if it's mediocre and forgettable, 2 expansions later it will turn out to be critical information.
Yes.
So yeah, it's so you can usually trust the Final Fantasy team to come up with some reason to engage you in what's going on. So I'm not too worried about them going somewhere with this. They're pretty good about their breadcrumbing, and making it actually lead somewhere.
What I was trying to allude to was that I would not have accepted this from Blizzard because it would just be so obvious garbage.
Yeah.
Yeah, they wouldn't have a clue where they're going. They'd be writing by the seat of their pants and changing stuff on the fly based on their whims and what they perceive public perception as. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I wouldn't trust it from a WoW team either. So yeah, that's the setup. And you go into a portal and you go into different rooms in this heavenly room area that look mostly similar in lighting and architecture to the first area, but with different arena types to fit each particular god. And this is where we.
The gods come in pairs. They all align there is a pair aligned for each element. If you look down the list of gods, one for the astral for the element, and one for the umbral for the element.
Yeah. So we got the fire and the blue ones that aren't water.
Wasn't it Earth? Maybe.
Lightning.
Yeah.
I think.
Lightning.
I don't.
Lightning sounds right.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
So,
What color is Beauregard?
I'm going to the wiki now. Hang on.
One of us has Relga as their patron. Don't
Yeah,
they?
I've got it, but I'm in a cutscene, so I can't look.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull up the wiki page. Okay, here we go. Yeah, okay, we got yellow and red, not blue.
Right.
No, not yellow. I'm done.
You're bad at this game.
You are.
I can't read charts. We got purple and red. Okay, so we got
There you
lightning
go.
and
Definitely
fire.
lightning.
Yeah.
Purple's
Okay.
definitely lightning.
Purple is lightning.
So yeah. So the first 2 bosses are the purple bosses, and I guess we'll start with Brigit.
His pants.
He's like when I looked at him, it reminded me of that joke in Dragon Ball Z Abridged, where Tien says that they're going to train, and Chaozu says that the doctor told him that he isn't allowed to get let his shoulders get any bigger.
Yes.
I'll post a picture of him.
That's
for
why we
live
don't
show
see
chat.
him anymore.
I think that it may be unhealthy that you immediately knew the line that followed it up.
Yeah. Dragon Ball Z's Abridged is great. But I think I may have watched it too many times.
It is one of the stock things that I put on in the background every time I start a new big grind for something.
Yeah.
It's in the background noise catalog.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although, don't do that with text-to-speech, by the way. Because you will hear random things that'll just catch your attention, and it's usually somebody screaming about something nonsensical. Usually about their quivering abs.
I see.
I'm still salty that Games Workshop did their developers dirty.
I know they were litigious, but surely this is like Nintendo levels of not understanding.
Yeah. No, you've got to put all the fan-made productions behind a paywall. And if people don't want to go behind the paywall, they die. Yeah. Although apparently that whole Warhammer Live, Warhammer Plus, whatever they ended up calling it, is not doing so great.
Well, how did the Nintendo equivalent do?
Oh yeah, bad.
Yeah. So, Where were we?
That bitch just got tabbed.
We're talking about Beauregard and his unhealthy muscles.
Yes.
Right. So we have the fight, and most of the fight is pretty basic mechanics, but he has one gimmick that is hilarious because of you get to just see who's gonna screw it up or realize you screwed it up at the last second and then instantly die.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of many mechanics this game has where you always do it either exactly right or exactly wrong.
There's no middle ground.
So he divides the platform into, I think, 3 columns of 5 rows.
Yes.
Or vice versa if you prefer. And so about 3 or 4 times throughout the phase while you're on this type of platform, he will summon hammers. I've dubbed this move Hammer Time, even though I don't know what its real name is because that's funnier. and hammers will appear at the sides of the rows and push the row forward one column or back 1 column, depending on what side of the row the hammer's on. And you do not move with the row.
Yeah, so it is entirely possible for the platform to get smacked out from under you.
Yeah. And you can always see one guy, at least during the first hit, who doesn't know the mechanic yet, and he's just standing in the wrong spot.
I don't know if it's that they don't know the mechanic, because I do know the mechanic and I still screw it up now and again.
You just completely miss the
Because
hammer.
no, it's not even that you miss it, it's just that your brain farts.
Yeah.
And you think, oh, I need to be on this side, and it's the opposite side to where you're supposed to be.
Because they'll drop extra mechanics on you while this is going on to get your brain fuzzed and get your brain scrambled. So what they'll do is they'll like plunk a big purple hammer on one of the blocks, and everything in that column that thing is aligned with will get zapped for a ton of damage and get a vulnerability stack. And then if that hammer happens to be on a row that is about to get hammer timed, the hammer will move in addition to all the blocks everywhere moving. And then you have a big double wide column AoE that goes on during hammer time that can cause a few shoes if you're not paying close attention.
Because while you don't move at the platforms, the emanator of that blast does.
So yeah.
I thought it was 3. I thought it was a 3-column hammer.
It might be.
So that you have to be, you can't be in a safe place. That's the point. You can't start in a safe place and finish in a safe place. You have to wait for a safe place to be created, and then you've got like 1 second to move into it.
Yeah.
I it might be, but I thought you could stand in a place that would look safe at first, and then the hammer would move, and then you would not be safe.
Depends on the...
hold on, we're talking about 2 different mechanics. I'm talking about the 3-column one, you're talking about the 1-column one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because in the 3-column one, the hammer moves. In the 1-column one, the hammer moves. In the 3-column one, everything except the hammer moves.
Yeah, that's it. So yeah. And I think the pillars can be jagged ahead of time. So that one's not as bad. You can just look at which one's going to be in a safe position. The real brain fuzz is because the hammer's going to move with the blocks, it's just a little extra effort on the brain to figure out which way it's going to go. And this is you were talking about ways that the Final Fantasy engages you more than WoW. In WoW, when you do a raid, LFR raid especially, you're doing rote mechanics that you don't have to do any kind of active thinking about. But a mechanic like this is something that is going to be slightly different every time you do it, and you can't develop any kind of just brainless muscle memory. Yeah. So you have to be engaged with the fight and the mechanic.
No matter how many times I've done most of the fights in FF, I always, every time when a mechanic like this appears, I always go through a moment of absolute panic. Just instantaneously I start to panic.
It's especially bad if for some dumb reason, like I was messing with my cards or trying to get a heal on somebody that was too far away, I wind up separated from the group safe spot, and I'm in a spot I think is safe, but there's that panic in the back of my head like, oh goodness, I screwed this up, didn't I? And it's about a 50-50 chance that yes, I did. So yeah, that's pretty much all of Brigid. He doesn't have a whole lot to his mechanics as a fight, but his one gimmick is a pretty good one. Since Fern's got to leave, we can skip Rauger's Emissary. I think we don't have to talk about that.
Yeah.
It's just a mini boss with really big tank busters. Leave. Woo. And then you have Rauger himself. You fight. You remember that scene in the opening of Stormblood and in the middle of the main story quest when you and Lise had a big punch out and you fought on top of a giant hand?
It's a very effective scene.
I guess Rauger decided that he liked you fighting on top of his giant hand, so he fights you on top of his giant hand.
Yeah. It's just
And,
there. There's no explanation. It just does it.
However, instead of a cutscene, you have to actually use the hand for the mechanics, which I like more than the fisty punch thing. Is having to use the fingers of the hand and look at which ones are going to be okay.
Yeah.
And the panic that comes with every time the AoE goes off.
I am convinced that they have purposefully calibrated the knockback to always make it look like you're going to fall off, even if you're safe.
Yeah.
So yeah, this a repeating mechanic throughout the fight is you're fighting in an open palm hand that's stretched up to the sky, and so you can walk on the fingers and thumb. And
sorry, I was getting a little bit distracted because I just got Prey Return to the Waking Sands.
Oh yeah, you'll do that a lot in that quest line.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's when you're fighting him on the hand, occasionally he will drop knockbacks of a couple flavors, but mostly one that is so important that it has its own unique indicator with giant arrows pointing towards the fingers. And most of those arrows will go right off the side of the finger.
Yeah.
Usually one finger will be safe.
No, it's always 2 fingers are safe, but one later on in the fight will be booby trapped.
Yes.
Yeah.
With a ball of doom.
Yeah. And so he'll do the knockback and you have to be aligned with the knockback and the finger to be knocked along the finger and not get fallen off. And it is the scariest mechanic you've ever seen every time it goes off, because you're like, I'm gonna fall off. I didn't angle it properly. I'm on the right finger, but I'm so dead. And but no, I haven't ever fallen off to it. I don't think I've seen. I know I've seen people fall off to it, but I don't know how cattywampus they were before the blast went off. So I don't know. Don't know if that was error. They were beyond the margin of error of the mechanic, or if they just screwed it up.
Yeah, probably a bit of both.
So yeah, there's that mechanic. And then there's the one we were talking about earlier, which is he makes 2 big giant portals that each take up vertical halves of the hand arena. And one of them will be blue and one will be orange, and he will channel into a smaller portal near him that'll indicate which of the big portals is going to have a big giant fist shoot out of it. And you just need to not be on the side the fisty punch comes from. Except for in the instance of first he will do it just this, and then he'll pair it with a proximity marker, where you need to get far away from the proximity marker in addition to being on the right half, the correct half of the room. And then he throws the curveball of one of the portals will be tilted and the proximity marker will be underneath it, and if he channels into that one, you need to run into the proximity marker in a complete 180 of what you would normally do. And instead of getting smashed by the meteor, his fist gets intercepted by it, and the meteor gets blasted to pieces and rains all over the area that would normally be the safe area in a proximity marker.
Yep, he punches the crap out of it, and it's great.
Yep, and he's a very, very fun fight. I like his arena. I like his the spectacle his stuff does. There's not much else to write home about with him. He has a couple more mechanics, but they're not worth delving too deep into.
Yeah, of the 4, I think Raugar was the most chill to fight. Once you figure out how not to go flying off the giant hand.
Everything is very clearly telegraphed, and you can tell by looking what you're supposed to do.
Yes.
It's quite intuitive.
Yeah. Unless you're me, the first time we did it and
It's like,
didn't notice the portal was tilted.
What it doesn't have that Beauregard does that makes Beauregard scarier is that you do not at any point in that fight have to reconstruct what the arena will look like after a mechanic goes off,
Yes.
which is usually what makes mechanics difficult. Like, for instance, in the Zodiac fight, for instance, that rotating of the board,
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
that's the same type of mechanic in terms of class that Beauregard has, where Beauregard is moving columns on the board, so to speak. And that's the thing that makes you always unsure if you're doing it correctly right up until it goes off, and then it will become unequivocal whether or not you were doing it correctly.
Yep. So yeah. I think that's all I got for Ralgar.
Yep.
Do y'all have anything else you want to throw on before we move on?
No, that's it.
Next mini boss we'll skim through quickly. It's this is the only other trash pack in the dungeon. It's 2 lions, and they get little
Nice
markers over
dogs.
their head. Yeah.
They're totally dogs because they've got 4 legs.
Yep.
That makes them dogs.
Yep.
Yes.
So the dog will be numbered 1 or 2, and it will do a specific flavor of AoE that complements the other AoE, so that the whole room is covered in AoE marker, and you have to identify which AoE will go off first, and then move into the safe zone before the second AoE goes off. And that's it. There's no more to the
Don't
little
stand and
trash pack.
poop, and just pay attention to which cat's going to do what.
Yeah, dog. But
Fish.
lions are dogs. But so yes. Next we have Azima, which aside from one mechanic is a fairly straightforward encounter. But the one that
I still
I think,
clown up every single time.
yeah, the one mechanic me and Vol seem to screw up the most in the Azima fight is occasionally she will throw out 2 fans, and they will zoom out from her and do damage, and they'll stick at the side of the arena. And then the arena is roughly a circle that's divided into 4 quadrants, and they will go to corners opposite of each other, and they will shift quadrants 4 or 5 times. And
Yeah, we were initially fixated on the idea that they would move the same number of times each time, and that you could just count them. But we're fairly sure that now it can be 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's caught us out. I think every time that attack's gone off, one of us has gotten hit.
I also always get hit by the 270-degree one.
Yeah.
Yeah, because she is not a very expressive model with body language when you have a bunch of explosions going off on her. And the only way to notice the AoE, unless you're staring at her cast bar, is to notice her doing that weird rear up, and like she's gonna do a big swipe in front of her while she's flying in the air. And she's just a little hard to. It's just a little hard to notice that when your brain's on other stuff like the health bars of the raid or your cards. So I've got hit by that a few times too.
Yeah. She throws it out pretty quick too, so you got to be on the ball for that one.
Yeah. The rest of it is there are AoE circles, and sometimes ads will appear behind the AoE circles that kick them around, and there are lines of fire, and sometimes ads will appear near to the side of one of the lines of fire, and the quadrant not directly in front of the ad, but directly across from you will be hit by fire.
And there's the triangle.
Triangle
and
of
the
Doom.
triangle. Yeah, the Triangle of Doom. That I am convinced that fire creeps closer than you think it will, or I was just really
I
bad.
think that you
twice.
were just being sloppy.
You have a fat
Because,
ass.
Yeah, there's a triangle with triple knockbacks that you start on the flat side of the triangle, and rotating around the triangle, you'll be knocked towards one of the points. So you want to be as close to the edge of the triangle as possible so that your feet don't wind up in the fire after the knockback, and you want to position to the next edge that's going to be knocked back immediately so that you're ready to get kicked to the next point. And the triangle's not very big. But
No.
if you're dumb like I was the first time we did it, you stand a half step too far back and just stand in the fire while you're trying to save somebody else that's dying and not realizing your own health bar is disappearing, and then you get barbecued.
Yeah.
So that's it for her pretty much.
The only other big thing is she has a. No, hang on. I'm thinking of Phoenix. Never mind. Carry on. Because
Yeah.
I did Panda Part 3 as well in the same week, so it's muddling up there a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, another fight where all the telegraphs are orange and so is all the attacks.
As are the ads that you need to keep track of.
Yeah.
Everything is orange.
Please just make some of them black. Just if that's thematic. It can be ash.
Yes.
Just please take some orange out. So, the last boss is the one everybody's gushing over because he has a vocal boss track, and
And
vocal boss tracks are always popular.
And this one's really good.
Yeah, it's I saw a comment on the YouTube video for the song that said this is what happens when Ulda gets a stage play,
Yeah, pretty much.
because the last boss is Nal, how do you say his name? Nalthal.
Nalthal.
Yeah.
Death
Yeah.
in Texas.
Death and Taxes,
Yeah.
exactly.
So Kungan decides that that's an old joke that nobody's going to get.
Nobody remembers Kungan anymore.
So Uldaman is interesting in that he does a whole lot of very simple mechanics, but he likes to troll you.
I got faked out by him so many times. I'm so bad at this fight.
Yeah, so his primary mechanic is he'll throw out tells that are both orange and blue, and then you need to keep a track of which one's going to be safe, which one's going to explode by keeping an eye on the background around the arena.
Yeah, you can also, I found out, look to see who is in control. Because Uldaman is actually Nald and Thal as two twin brothers that use the same body, which really brings a whole lot more questions about the in-game swear Thal's balls if Thal is upside down.
Oh yeah, if you stand behind him, you can see the face of the brother who's not in control looking at his butt. So there's that.
Yeah, brings a whole new meaning to Thal's balls.
Yeah.
So yeah, just shower thoughts I had one morning. So yeah, that's this is another color matching boss. Like I said, these have been popular lately. It seems. I can only remember two from the raids out of hand. This one and what's his face, the first boss of the normal raids.
Oh, Panda.
But I'm certain I've seen a few more of them that have floated up recently, and I just can't think of them.
I think there's a couple in the dungeons.
Yeah. So
Well, the color matching bosses are color matching bosses, except when they're color opposite bosses.
Yes.
Yeah. So in this case, it's if the color of the background will activate the color of the tell on the ground. So there'll be blue and orange tells. If the background is orange, the orange tells will be active and the blue tells will not go off, and vice versa. So you need to be standing near where the blue zones would hit if the background is orange. So it's opposite day for colors.
The problem is he likes to troll there, and he will swap them just before it goes off, just to screw with you.
Yeah, so Nanthal's lanterns are determined by which twin is in control, but he is on this kind of, like, I'm having a brain fart on the word. His torso flips around and can spin. It's on an axle, there we go. And to change which one's in control. But it can look like he's going to flip, and the background looks like it might change, and then it doesn't, or it changes abruptly. And this makes the telegraphs significantly more difficult to read when he suddenly changes to orange when he's been blue for the last several tells, and it looked like he was going to be blue again, because when the lanterns aren't up all the time, they go away and you go back to the normal background of the arena, and then the lantern background pops up and to tell you the color mechanics are coming.
Yeah.
So he can wait a while to flip over, and this leads to quite a bit of trolling because the background doesn't change until he flips over. So yeah, that's one way he trolls you. The other way he trolls you is with a laser beam move that has almost got me several times, but I don't think I've got hit by it yet. Where he will direct a portion of one half of the room is going to be covered with blue laser beams, and he will rotate on his axle and swing like a pendulum a little bit, and decide if he's going to stay on the side he's mostly pointed towards or flip to the other side. And then fire off a half room wide AoE. So you got to be on the correct side.
Yeah.
So those are the two big trolley mechanics that are in the fight. But the actual telegraphs they involve are not that you have to dodge for the colors are not that big a deal. It's just figuring out which color is going to be safe.
Yeah. So overall, they're all four very, very spectacular fights.
Yeah. There's more to Nopthal, like he's the only boss I can think of that has a proper ultimate move in the dungeon, and he'll create clones of a random party member from each of the groups, and you have to kill them. And they will all be on. They seem to always spawn on one half of the arena from every video I've seen of the fight and every fight we've done.
Mm-hmm.
And when they die, you'll notice 3 weight markers over their head that are really big, and all the players get a little tiny weight marker. And you have to find a way to balance scales at the back of the room. And there seems to always be one guy dancing on the edge that's tipping the scales after the groups got settled, because you have quite a while to figure this out, and it seems to have a leeway of about 1 or 2 people.
Yeah. So if 1 or 2 people are in the wrong place, it's not a big deal. But yeah, more than that, and everyone's going to explode.
But when somebody's at the side playing around with the line, it's quite scary.
Yes.
But if you balance the scales, the ultimate just hits for ultimate damage, and you just heal it up.
Yeah, it doesn't take too much.
But often you don't know if it's going to hit or not.
Because of that guy flipping back and forth at the back, yeah.
Yeah, that was how I felt on the last run that Ari and I did through it. It was the guy, which side was he on when he stopped? I didn't get to see.
He got paralyzed on what I thought was the correct side, but you don't know where the server registers the tick for this ability. So he could have still been on the wrong side.
And you don't know until it goes off.
Yep. And that's a fun one. And the other big mechanic that gets me more than the other mechanics, at least the initial drop of them, is the big balls from the sky.
Balls. Yeah.
The very first time it went off, I did it perfectly. I didn't get hit by anything. But since then, I haven't been able to reproduce the performance.
Yeah, I usually get hit by one of the balls in the first drop every single time.
It's one of those mechanics that I feel like if I could just scroll out just a little bit further.
Yeah.
Because after the first one, it's pretty easy to see where they're going to go and line it up. But that first one can sneak up on you. And as a healer with basically no health, that's really scary. When you get hit by one of them things, because it hurts. So yeah, that is the new raid pretty much.
Yeah,
I thought it was a pretty decent one. Like, I mean, it hasn't dethroned Tower of Paradigm's Reach for me as the best one, but it's still very good. I enjoyed it very much.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna top Red Girl.
Yeah, I'm just completely in love with the Red Girl fight. It's great.
Yeah, she's an excellent fight. I don't think they're going to top that anytime soon, especially not in the first raid of a tier.
Yeah, but I mean, I think oftentimes I think that they probably aren't pitching to make a showstopper for the first one. They want to make it good and intriguing and all that, but I think they probably do save their best for last.
We say that, but I mean, even Copied Factory was so ridiculously good compared. And Rabanastre wasn't a bad raid series, but Copied Factory, the first raid of the tier in Shadowbringers, blew everything Rabanastre had out of the water. Just the fight with Marks by himself, the big robot that looks like a walking crane.
But that's I think that's they underwent a pretty significant shift in what they were aiming to do with them after that point. Rabanesta was kind of controversial because a lot of people couldn't do it.
Yeah. So,
Oh, this is
yeah, I enjoy the raid. It's a mostly sight readable raid. You'll make the color mistake once and then know it's opposite day and not matching day. And then the only other telegraph that is really you're probably going to get whacked by it might be the tilted portal. But even then, you'll see the blob of people moving towards the proximity marker, and that'll probably be a pretty big hint.
Honestly, I think their hammer time is more dangerous than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, hammer time as well, because you don't know what the hammers are going to do.
All you have to do is have one brain fart and you die instantly. There's no grace period there because you're off the edge. You're not just going to get a second of vulnerability or whatever.
Anyway, we're actually out of time.
What?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
So yeah, very very nice sight readable raid that I enjoyed.
Yeah. It's
And,
good fun. The only real major bit of news is Blizzard unveiled their mobile game. It's Clash Royale. The end.
Yeah, World of Clashcraft.
Clashcraft.
Well, we'll save it for next week and just call the going over the raid this week's content because Fern's got to run.
Yeah.
And yeah, we have no news this week anyway, so just you saved yourself some tangenting. That's about all we got. All right, folks. I guess I'll take us to closing comments and get us out of here.
Yeah. I don't want to work anymore.
Nor do
My
I.
summoner has pants.
You put pants on it?
Well, it doesn't have pants. It has short, skirty top with proper leggings.
Okay, that's fine then.
Hence of the week.
Exactly.
Yeah, cannot have proper pants. I don't think any of my characters have proper pants. No, they don't. Had to check. They all have dresses or skirts of some kind.
No, well, one of your characters doesn't even have that. It just doesn't have pants.
Just completely
No,
lacking
that's-
pants.
That's the one I was talking about that has now replaced the leotard with the stockings
Oh, I see.
and the
Anywho.
and the short skirty thing. So yeah. All right, folks. I think we're done. We'll see you next week. Sayonara. Bye bye.